Okay, here's a new one that just came out on the Viking Variola Virus. It's very vexing. Let's look into this. Viking explorers found to be carriers of the world's deadliest virus. They start off telling you that there's Chinese flu, Kung flu, and now the Trump flu, according to Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House of Representatives. But now, in the middle of these politicized pseudonym names for coronavirus during the current epidemic, a new scientific paper has been published about an ancient microkiller that could be called the killer Viking disease. The team of researchers from St. John's College, University of Cambridge, discovered extinct stains of smallpox in the teeth of Viking skeletons, which proved for the very first time that the killer smallpox disease haunted humanity's growth trajectory for at least 1,400 years now, and they'll make allusions to how it went much earlier than that. So here's a Viking burial, and it looks like a fairly healthy person that died, but it's kind of a skin disease, and they can see it in some of the connectives and things like that where it would really affect somebody on the way out, and you wouldn't see that in a skeleton of this age till you looked at it in the way that they did. And this is from a 1,200-year-old smallpox-infected Viking skeleton discovered in Öland, Sweden. And that's twice recently I've heard that name, and the other was on an excavation site. So I'm guessing I'm going to put two and two together and say that excavation site that would have been related to Vikings and such showed this evidence inside of it. A murderous stowaway hiding inside international travelers. The new paper by an international team of researchers was published in Science and part of a long-term project sequencing 5,000 ancient human genomes and their associated pathogens. This particular gene sequencing project focused on ancient strains of the smallpox virus extracted from the teeth of Viking skeletons unearthed across Europe. The team of researchers found smallpox caused by the variola virus in 11 Viking area burial sites in Denmark, Norway, Russia, the UK, and in multiple human remains from Öland, an island off the east coast of Sweden. Professor S.K. Willerslev of St. John's College, and I've had her in 7 or 8 videos here lately, in the University of Cambridge, who led the new study, explained that smallpox spread from person to person via infectious droplets and that it killed around 1/3 of sufferers and left another third permanently scarred or blind. So only 1/3 of the people made it out of it unscathed with a few pock marks and stuff on their body. The paper reveals that around 300 million people died from the disease during the 20th century alone before it was officially eradicated in 1980 thanks to the deployment of global vaccines. Those amazing Caucasians. This represents the first human disease that the human race successfully eradicated. And, well, there might have been others. We're not too sure. And if they ever kick back on us, we might find out that we had somewhat eradicated it, but not. There was one flesh-eating weird disease that got out that they say is related to monkeys and stuff in South America, and they were doing an excavation, and it started screwing up everybody there, and they figured they got it from there. But that was one of those things where they said the whole land was cursed, kind of like in the Micmac Indian burial ground in Pet Cemetery or something, and that that you wouldn't go up there and da da da, and there's no animals up there to go after or anything. It's just weird. And they go up there in this jungle and everything, and they found all these ruins, and they started digging them out. But they also said they noticed that there's not really any animals around, and birds quite often are just totally quiet and things like that. Anyhow, the professor said that his team already knew Vikings were moving around Europe and beyond, but now it's known that they had smallpox. In the same way people are spreading COVID-19 during the pandemic by traveling around the world on airplanes, it is thought that likely the Vikings spread smallpox due to their extensive sea travels. So when they talk about their moving around Europe and beyond, that was quite some beyond. And when we make the connection to the Phoenicians and their expanses and what they had gone through in ancient times and their expanses, and if we thought about where these Vikings were before that we've talked about, then one would say that they came from beyond. Na, 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 na. The researchers conclude that the 1400-year-old genetic information extracted from the Vikings' teeth is hugely significant because it teaches us about the evolutionary history of the variola virus that caused smallpox. And so they're showing you a graphage here, and they show you a few different cases linked up to certain forms of the virus. And though they're not linking that to any animals necessarily that have it, the first two they definitely are, with camels and rats or rodents. And we know that fleas cause the bubonic plague and everything through that, and flea bites passing things around. So, strangeness. But there's other ones here, and that of course has to be cattle, have some form of another that is passing it around if it's not just straight cattle. And it could contain horses or goats, but people don't think of also chickens and ducks. And well, chicken pox is either this, that, and the other. Well, yeah, okay. There's diseases that can come from animals like that, and things that never been susceptible to it. It can really wipe them out. In fact, I thought one extreme clever usage of that here recently was whenever you see War of the Worlds and they redid the thing, and basically the viruses of birds that people had already been immune to were screwing these creatures off. And it's been portrayed in a couple of things, but it's pretty neat. But also showing you that apparently at one time right here in this band, they already had it full solid and cleared, which didn't happen until a modern day. And that's kind of strange too. But then there are markers that don't show up. There's one marker that doesn't show up in that's comparative. I'm sorry, 2 with this orange one, 3 with this orange, 2 orange and a white. Wonder what that exactly means, because it's orange and a white in the same place here, orange and orange in the same place here, orange and orange in the same place here. So it looks like this is a reiteration of that, with one small deviation. Anyhow, gene sequencing provides proof of smallpox in Vikings. Historians believe smallpox may have existed since 10,000 BC. Because, well, we got around cattle and started domesticating animals there. At least that's as old as we're willing to go now, though Cro-Magnon man was non-prognostic and things, which they've always said showed that trait. But again, now we're going with Göbekli Tepe, and because we have it. And so 10,000 BC, so it must have gotten there somewhere back in that time. People of Catalhoyuk and leading out of that. But no specific scientific evidence of the virus has been found from a time before the 17th century. While scientists are still, well, that's not necessarily true either. We know that they've caught some pharaohs that actually had smallpox. They actually have the pustules on them in their burials and things, and they know that, they're supposedly the curses that ran through there from the Bible and situation, and that they correlated it with that. This could have been one of the plague type situations, but it wouldn't have taken just the first son, but they also correlated to that with other ideals. While scientists are still unclear about how smallpox first infected humans, like COVID-19 is believed to have been leaped from an animal population. Professor Martin Sikora, one of the senior authors lead study of the Center of Geogenetics at University of Copenhagen, said that the timeline of emergence of smallpox has always been unclear, but by sequencing the earliest known strain of the killer virus, we have proved for the first time that smallpox existed during the Viking Age. Well, their own graph there shows it goes back well before that. And into apparently camels and animal populations in the Wayback Machine of Proto-Europeans and so on. The researchers also say it was highly probable that there were epidemics much earlier than their published findings, and while they don't know for sure if these strains of smallpox were fatal and caused death of the Vikings, they certainly died with smallpox in their bloodstream enough for us to be able to detect them up to 1400 years later. So one could discern, yeah, it's looking like most of these that they get detected in must have done it. The problem with that is they have a whole bunch of other ones that, of course, don't have it. Now, is this showing who had it and who didn't, or who had been exposed before and who hadn't, and things along this nature? Is this helping the fact that 80% of the genetics changed whenever the Bell Beaker culture comes in, and later other people, all the Anglo-Saxons and such that we know about? So here's a hand-drawn picture apparently from London USF from 1831, and this is him having pustules all over him. I should make that the opening picture. No, no, I don't think I will. Killed around 300 million people in the 20th century alone before it was officially eradicated in 1980 thanks to that global vaccine. Unexpected smallpox discovery overturns virology assumptions. Dr. Terry Jones of, he surely can't be the one from Monty Python? I doubt it. One of the senior authors leading the study of a computational biologist based at the Institute of Virology in Charité. Yeah, not him. And the Center for Pathogen Evolution at the University of Cambridge said that none of the team expected to find proof of these smallpox strains even existed. According to Dr. Jones, it has long been believed that smallpox circulated in Western and Southern Europe by 600 AD. So thanks to these new findings, it's been scientifically proven that smallpox was also widespread in Northern Europe, and that returning crusaders or other later events have been thought to have brought smallpox to Europe, but such theories cannot be correct in the light of this new study, which have said, no, it's happening somewhat simultaneously. Well, as we've shown in some of our videos, there was a Spice Road way before a Spice Road, and these things happened much earlier than people thought. If you were to really be able to track it down, you would be able to see that everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. And ding, there's your culprit. But everybody that was exposed to it ended up being an unwilling culprit that lived through it. Viking exploration history. Can't look at that. They're flagging anything like crazy. Dr. Jones added that archaeological knowledge from the past can't protect us in the present. Mutations can reoccur or spill over from the animal reservoirs, so there will always be another zoonosis, referring to an infectious disease outbreak caused by a pathogen jumping from a non-human animal to a human. And perhaps it goes the other way too, that maybe humans have passed it to an animal and they get the pathogens for it and everything and carry it as a carrier, and then it pops back up. It's somebody that's susceptible. And while smallpox was eradicated 40 years ago, the scientists warned that another smallpox strain could spill over from the animal reservoir even tomorrow. So, fearmonger, no, I'm just kidding. Watch out. And so it's something that's not to be messed with at all. And of course, with diseases and stuff, they're starting to fearmonger people into craziness. What you really wouldn't want to do is start really over sterilizing yourself and things like that, and become a germaphobe and become the boy in the bubble. If you remember that movie whenever you were a kid, a long time ago, John Travolta played a kid that couldn't be exposed. It was like he had AIDS or something naturally from genetic problem, and they just figured that if he caught a cold, he would die. Anything that would happen. And once he got older and met a girl and everything, he decided to break out from the bubble. But then supposedly based on somewhat of a true story. But yeah, so well, we all live in the bubble, and you get exposed eventually, and you could see how rapidly this transposed from the other side of the world. Who, whenever I was a kid, he might as well have been on the moon or someplace, which now it really is quite a much smaller place. And crap like this gets around quicker than you might imagine. So you have to stay on top of it. But this latest thing hasn't really been that big of a deal compared to what they said it was going to be, and tried to inflate the numbers. In fact, because of flip-flopping, trying to inflating the amount of numbers and deaths and everything that they tried to do to it, it just basically shows that it's got a survival rate that's incredible and nothing like what we're talking about right now. For 2/3 of the people that ever get infected used to be at least blind and crippled from this. Half of those would have been dead anyhow. Like, share, and subscribe, and enjoy. We'll go on to some more interesting archaeological information. Peace.